6 November Terrafly runway heading runway 5. Clear for takeoff.
From Psychic Sundays to E.T. Contact and everything in between, this is Spaced Out Sunday's Cosmic Passport with host Elizabeth Anglin.
Check it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Having great show, guys. Smoke now.
You can connect with Elizabeth on Skype at 505-908-9558 and Spirit for Peace. Follow Liz on Twitter at Elizabeth Anglin and hashtag SpacedOutRadio. And you can connect with us on the web at spacedoutradio.com.
I feel the need for speed.
You feel it over and over again. We take you higher and higher and higher. You feel it over and over again.
Chillers, cool now. Smoke off now.
This is the love we live again.
Chillers, ready, Lord. Contact. Easing up. Chillers, cool now. Really now. One left.
Don't look much like Los Angeles to me. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
Now taking you on a spiritual journey from the desert of New Mexico this Sunday night, here's Spaced Out Sunday's Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin.
Chillers, ready to get Contact.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Cosmic Passport. I am your host, Elizabeth Anglin, coming to you from the Spaced Out Radio Cosmic Cruise Mobile, live from the stormy, windy, wild, and wonderful desert Southwest, specifically the art colony hippie commune, that's right, I said commune, of Madrid, New Mexico, as we do every Sunday here on spacedoutradio.com. For all of you listening in from around North America and the world, I want to welcome everyone listening on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, at spacedoutradio.com on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, and the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on KTLK, The Fringe. Thank you for being here, everybody. Thanks to our guitar god, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. He creates the music that makes Spaced Out Radio rock, the official spacedoutradio.com music. We love you, Ron. Thank you. Also, if you are on Twitter, check us out at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like at Spaced Out Radio Show on Facebook. You can follow me at Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin. Yes, that's my name, Elizabeth Anglin. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you go to patreon.com, we have some cool offers for you, our listeners there as well. Make sure you check those out. If you want to take part in the show, we will take questions from the chat rooms. Just type them in all caps, but you'll have to sign into one of our chat rooms to post a question. So you can go to Spreaker at spacedoutradio.com or on the chat room on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, for just $5 a month, you can join the SOR Space Travelers, who are a rowdy bunch. I have to tell you, there's a party in that chat room almost every night. We offer some pretty decent swag for people who join, but I also have to say it's a lot of fun. It's our opportunity to give back to you and have community with you, so please check it out. Also, check out our news section, The Encounter, that deals with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Themer. Yes, I call Markham. I can't help it, but it's Eric Markham and Everett Themer. And you can check out Dave Scott's latest blog there as well. If you have had an experience you can't explain, go ahead and fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our researchers are ready to help you find out what's going on, and it will be kept 100% confidential. It will never get out, and our researchers really know what they're doing. We are a radio network of experiencers. We are here for experiencers. We are here for you. Well, tonight, speaking of experiencers, we were just talking with Dave Scott about his experience today, not with Sasquatch, but wannabe experience with Sasquatch, which ended up being with a bear, and our guest, Mare Cromwell, who has had experience with Sasquatch, which we'll get into later in the show. But I want to tell you a little bit about Mare. She is a multi-award-winning author and nature mystic. Her books are The Great Mother Bible, Messages from Mother, Earth Mother, and If I Gave You God's Phone Number, Searching for Spirituality in America. Mare has studied with Native American teachers for 19 years and sits on the 7 Generations World Wisdom Council. She has a master's in natural resources from the University of Michigan. She formerly worked in the environmental field for 35 years, and her environmental career spanned both international and regional programs in the Mid-Atlantic states. Upon returning to Maryland in 1995, she has conducted environmental sustainability workshops, coordinated the creation of the Gunpowder Watershed Alliance, and was the executive director of the Pretty Boy Watershed Alliance from 2003 to 2005. And she also has consulted on nonprofit management and fundraising with other environmental organizations. Mare is currently known for her workshops on our sacred planet Earth Mother, the Great Mother Wisdom Gathering, Womb Wisdom, and Sacred Silliness. She loves to be involved in sacred water ceremonies, and she's also a former worm herder who yearns to have more worms soon for herding in an indoor worm composting system. Mare, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to contact you and find out more about what you're doing, how can they reach you?
Well, I'm really honored that you have me on tonight. They can reach me at my website, which is marecromwell.com. So it's MARE Cromwell.com. And yeah, I love the bio that you just read is a little dated. I was like, oh my, I should have sent you a more updated one, but it's all good.
Well, I like it because I like to go back to the past of how I like to kind of have an overview of how people got from where they were to where they are now on this journey on planet Earth. And when I read this, I was like, well, no wonder I was attracted to Mare, because I worked for the Department of Environmental Protection in Massachusetts, and Sane Free and Clean Water Alliance. And so in my 20s and early 30s, I did a lot of environmental work, and my degree is in environmental geography. So I was like, well, no wonder. I like that. So I am really interested in how did you get to where you are now from where you were?
You know that line, a funny thing happened along the way. How long of an answer do you want? Well, we have 3 hours, right?
Right, we have 3 hours.
How I got here, I'll be really honest with you. The way I perceive it now is that I have an ancestor 6 generations back who was a very gifted Celtic priestess and healer. And I'm apparently the chosen girl or woman in this generation who was meant to fulfill the work that she did, and that every single generation there was supposed to be one girl who stepped forward to follow her footsteps as a healer, priestess, whatever title you want to use, whatever they used in Ireland at that time. And so she's been a guardian of mine, along with other guardians, since I was born, or gestation in my mother's womb. And so this is how I understand this. And plus soul contract. I know now that my soul contract before I was born was to work extremely closely with Earth Mother and Mother Gaia, and to surrender to her and put the books out that I have put out, because 2 of the books are actual conversations with Mother Gaia, wisdom that she wants the world to have right now. And so the events I do, and the books I've written, and the projects I take on are all guided by Mother. She tells me what to do, and I've surrendered to her. And a piece of that story, my relationship with her, I've surrendered as deeply to her as I have, because I was diagnosed with lymphoma in very late May, early June of 2012. And I was really freaking out about this, because it's not really fun to be told you have cancer. And 4 days after that diagnosis, I was already scheduled to meet with a really gifted Algonquin man to do a ceremony for Earth Mother, Mother Gaia. And he had been working really closely with her for years and could communicate with her. And she requested this ceremony that the 2 of us do. And he said to me a couple things. He said that Earth Mother said to him that this would be healing for her. And we didn't know what that meant. I mean, it just seemed like, how could 2 of us doing a simple ceremony be healing for her? And I understand better now what she meant by that. And also, he said right before the ceremony that he was going to be bringing her energy and her consciousness into my energy body, but he didn't know how we were going to disconnect afterwards. And so technically, we've never disconnected. And right after the ceremony, she started talking to me the way you can hear me talking right now, and said that if I truly surrendered to her, she would help me heal from the lymphoma without working with the doctors at all. And so that's essentially what's happened. I don't have lymphoma anymore. It's been a bit of an adventure, and lots of shifts in my diet and my thinking process, and miraculous healings. That'd be a whole nother book, all the miraculous healings I've had, because that's what she, facilitated for me, because I surrendered to her.
When you're talking about a miraculous healing, you were doing the healing for Mother Earth, and in the process, you received healing as well. Do you think that's because of a connection, not just for yourself as someone who is listening and giving messages from Mother Earth, but because we are also intimately linked with Mother Earth? Or how do you characterize how that healing happened?
Well, Earth Mother is the ultimate healer. And when one of us or any of us choose to work really closely with her and really connect with her, the amount of healing energy we can tap into is a bit off the charts. I mean, it's really, I don't know how you could even it's just quantum energy. And she's powerful. And I hope I'm answering your question correctly there. I had a tree give me a healing one time in the process of, recovering from the lymphoma diagnosis, where I'd gone out to this grove of forest. I work with the nature spirits too. I can communicate with them. Being a mystic is kind of an adventure. The different beings that speak with me and that I can identify exactly who they are. But I went out and did this ceremony, and it was in an area that had been really grossly developed, that never should have been developed, very, very steep. The nature spirits were pissed off. They had not gotten over it. When I went to do this ceremony, and the only patch of woods left. And on my way out from finishing the ceremony, I could tell that they were really happy with what I did and celebrated the energy. And I was guided to put my hands on this one tree. Normally, I'm always hanging out with trees and tapping into their energy. But in this particular instance, the energy that came through that tree was so powerful. It was just straight through my body, straight through my chakra system. I mean, it wasn't like Kundalini energy, but it was incredibly powerful. And I was able to at least get in my car and drive home, and then I just collapsed on the couch for the rest of the evening. But it was a very powerful healing energy that my body needed to support me with the healing of the lymphoma. But I'm not that special, really. We all have the capacity to connect with Mother. And in the events that I do, I teach people how to do that, different ways to do it. And these are some of the ways she's guided me to instruct people, because she's so yearning for us to come home to her.
So I love that story about the tree, and when you talk about yearning for people to come home, we have a lot of Sasquatch or Bigfoot experiencers here. When I was up in Colorado, I had a Bigfoot family that would come visit. Dave has had a Bigfoot experience. We have some listeners in the chat room who have various visits of what seems to be Bigfoot coming through. And you're also in some way a Bigfoot experiencer. Can you tell us about that, how that is for you?
Yeah. Well, when I was writing the Great Mother Bible, my third book, and my second and third books were not my idea. They were completely Mother's idea. When I was writing it, I was living in a house in the same development where I was just talking about, where I had the experience with the healing tree. And I was pretty much sort of sequestered and waking up very, very early every morning and chatting with Mother and living off my savings, not working. I didn't leave the house for about 3 weeks. My car wouldn't even move because Mother didn't want it to move. I went through everything of food in the cupboard, practically. But one night, there was this really odd stench that was a lot like, skunk, but not skunk, like stronger than skunk. And those who have experienced Sasquatch, sometimes you may have smelled that. And I didn't know what it was. It was really late, like 11:30 that night. And I was on Facebook, which was my only social outlet at the time, me and Mother and Facebook. And I was chatting with a friend and telling her about this really strange smell, and she could tell it was something spiritual, and I could tell it was something spiritual, and I got out my smudge, and I did everything I knew that I'd been learning from the Native American teachers. I said, claim the space, clear the space, get it out, whatever it is, if it's not invited in. And it lingered in my bedroom all night, and it kind of weirded me out, but I didn't feel threatened, per se. It just was unknown, and I didn't invite it in, to my knowledge. And the next day I called this really gifted elder who I had been working with very closely, a major guardian for me, actually, at the time when I was writing the book. And he laughed. He said, well, that was Sasquatch. They came in because they're the keepers of Mother. They're like the caretakers of Earth Mother. And they came in to visit you. And essentially I had sent them packing to the best I could. So they didn't come back that whole winter into the spring. But then a year and a half later, a friend of mine sent me a link to the 50 messages from Sasquatch that was posted on the internet in the early fall of 2015. And I think you said you know Sunbow, and have had him probably on the show. He's the one who's been receiving the messages from Sasquatch. So when my friend sent me that link, I started reading it. I immediately felt Sasquatch come in again on the spirit plane. And I started talking with them. And I have never seen one, or I know I've been in the vicinity of them, and they've been pretty close, but I haven't seen them. But they told me at that time in the fall of 2015 that they wanted me to help them also. They wanted me to help get the word out, one about the messages from Sasquatch that was so accessible on the internet and now is a book. And he's actually, Sunbow's just put out a second book of messages, which I need to read. So, and then they started downloading images, sort of visuals of how hard things were getting for them and how they had lost some of their young with the forest fires that summer in 2015, which were started intentionally by forces at large that would really like to eradicate Sasquatch from the planet. And so I committed to them, but I did it in a really tentative way because it's already weird enough to a lot of people. I live on the East Coast. I'm not out in California where it's really progressive and open, and the East Coast is waking up slowly. So I've helped them to the extent that I felt guided to, and I love them. I love them to bits. And the books that have been put out by Kiwani Lapsaritis are brilliant and beautiful and amazing stories. And Kiwani and I talked and we swapped books. And so, Sasquatch, I call on them every day when I do ceremony to thank them and send them love. And they have helped me as a spiritual guardian. And there are other things I've done for them that I can't really talk about here with some other really gifted people I work with to support them on the spirit plane with the shifts on the planet right now.
Oh, we talk about that. We used to have every Sunday night a show called The Shift. We would get that if you did talk about it. But what I think is so wonderful about what you're saying is the Sasquatch, that the Bigfoot family that I talked to, I was invited out to follow them because the elder male wanted me to see what they were doing, how they were on the earth, like how they were with the plants, how they were with because they also spread seed. They also they move things from place to place when things get out of balance. At least that's what he told me. And he said one summer, he said, if you can take some time and follow us, and it ended up I didn't have the time and I didn't have the health at the time to follow them. He said, you'll see these little telltale changes in the environment that have been made by us. And they did things like, stack rocks up around my barn and braid macrame my horse's mane, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Great. That's so great. Well, they are so misunderstood and they're so sensitive, and it really hurts them anytime another headline comes out that it makes them out to be these hairy monsters. It's just, I loved what Sunbo has done with the messages from Katu, the elder that he's been communicating with. It's such a powerful set of messages about the history of the planet. And I was invited to speak at the Fairy and Human Relations Congress. I don't know if you know about that event, but if you don't know, it would be helpful for you guys to research it and maybe somebody go at one point. But they invited me to speak there in June 2016. And when I got the invitation, I didn't know what I was going to talk about at first. And that was when I was really working a lot more closely with Sasquatch. And Sasquatch said, you need to talk about us. It was very clear, you need to talk about us. And the cool thing at that event, the Fairy and Human Relations Congress, is that it's held in Washington State on the east side of the Cascades, where there's a lot of Sasquatch activity. And they were there. They were there during that event. They're there at every one of those gatherings. And they showed up like right next to the building where I was doing the workshop on them. A guy who was looking out the window saw this tree shapeshift right outside. And I know I can feel them right now. They're listening right now. They've come in on the spirit plane. I can feel their presence. So, they're very connected, and we're their younger brothers. And one of their messages, I lead a webinar called Opening to Gaia's Sacredness. And I talk about Sasquatch in it because Sasquatch has asked me to. And, Sasquatch is calling people to do what these books that I put out from Mother Gaia are, and in the essence of the book is come home to the soul of Mother Gaia, come home to the soul of our Earth Mother, because that's the only way we're really going to make it through to the next world that's coming in a really beautiful way, is if more and more people really connect with Mother Gaia. And that means also connecting with Sasquatch, because they're our elder brothers.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, and you were talking about the fires that were set in 2015. My elder died in 2014, but in 2013 there were fires in Arizona, and I was on the western slope of Colorado. So the whole sky was just a mess. We had fires in Colorado as well. And he would come in from time to time, and I'd say, well, what do you think of these fires? And he said, humans, damn burners. you're burning everything.
No,
And it was really upset that, it's habitat for Sasquatch, it's habitat for animals, and it makes their habitat less and less. But we're the only ones who are burning on this planet. We're burning fossil fuels, we're burning nuclear energy, fission, we're burners. But so I thought, hey, that's a simple way to put it. We're burners. That's what we are.
Which is what they call themselves at Burning Man. So it's like,
yeah, it's like, 'cause we're
not such a great title, maybe. I don't know.
Well, if you can own it, and own it without humiliation, then I guess you can do something with it. When you want to hide it, then you can't do anything with it. So
that's true. It's very true.
So I want to go to part of your book, and hopefully it will open up for me here, because I had it up a second ago, and it had to do with the 13 commandments plus precepts. And what's so interesting to me, and these are messages from, this is in Messages from Mother. Some of this sounds so much like what the Grand Master of Reiki, Phyllis Lee Furamoto, was writing about in 1994 when I became a Reiki master. Everything is a song, and you are part of the song. And the song in you is always moving and changing and dancing. So in the 13 commandments plus precepts, Earth Mother says, I gave the planet a song. Know that you are part of this song as one in the vast web of life, no greater, no less. All that you do affects the song for better or for worse. Your thoughts, and number 2, your thoughts, both positive and negative, affect the song as much as your actions. Number 3, everything has consciousness. The stones, the plants, even mountains, rivers, and oceans all join in the song. Know that your thoughts and actions are registered in the song and affect the stones, plants, mountains, and all, for better or for worse. And then developing a silence of mind from this place, deep gratitude is one of the most positive things you can do for Mother and all others in the song, especially those very sensitive, intelligent ones, such as whales and dolphins and other animals. So, did this come out for you? This is just 1 through 4, but did these commandments and precepts just come to you, or did you develop them, or how did you come to this?
Well, that book, Messages from Mother Earth Mother, was written in 5 weeks, just after the ceremony with that Algonquin man, where Mother was brought into my energy body, her consciousness and her energy into my energy body. Things happened really fast. I was working on a whole other book, and she said, you need to put that one aside, and this is what I want you to write. And so when it came to that one chapter, I think it's number 5 in that book, Mother said to me that day, I want you to write, and at the time she said commandments. I've edited it to be love directives, and she was okay with that, and they're listed also in the Great Mother Bible too in the beginning. But she said that day, I want you to do I want you to write my commandments. And I was like, oh my God, okay, how? And because sometimes, the conversations with her were really, really clear and crisp, and other times, I needed a break. And so that day, I kind of pondered, well, she wants me to do this, but she's not giving me a download in the moment. So I'm just going to futz around with some things on paper and whatever. And that night when I went to bed, it was late. I was told as soon as I started to lie down and put my head on the pillow that I had to get right back up again and do ceremony and just have a pad of paper and a pen. And so that's what I did, is I got up, whatever time it was, excuse me, around 1 a.m. and started ceremony and literally just wrote exactly what is in the books. And that's where it came from. It was this download. But I can say this, that the spiritual beings that came in, I could not have identified all of them, but I know the Christ consciousness was there. Or Christ, some people might just say Christ. It was a good, solid team. The room was crowded. And I just wrote. I listened and wrote. So that's where that came from.
Wonderful. And it brings up in number 7, it talks about, it says, come to understand your shadow self and make bringing it to consciousness to heal it part of the dance and celebration. Number 8, it is all just energy, money, time, your job, your play, your love. Choose to make it as positive as possible and lose the illusion of fear with this energy dynamic. And one of the earlier ones, it says, hey, fear that's in your mind is illusion. Fear that's in your body telling you not to step in front of the bus is not. That's a summation on my part. Know that perfection is an illusion. You are all the most beloved and delightfully flawed beings on 2 legs, and that is how it is meant to be, and it makes you all the more lovable. I love that part, because I always love critters and beings and people. It sounds bad. Like, I rehab racehorses, and the racehorses that were the most pain in the butt, that needed the most work, I loved them more. And, it's like... Nice. They make me love them more. Why? Because I have to tape them up so often. So, we spend a lot of time together. But I like that perfection is an illusion. Anyway, what is this about the shadow self? What have you learned about that since you've been doing this work with Mother Earth?
Oh, gosh. I know it's an everyday adventure. We're such fascinating beings as humans, as 2-leggeds. And in that book, Messages from Mother Earth, Mother, it was very clear that any mention of humans was pretty much 2-leggeds. You 2-leggeds, 2-leggeds do this, 2-leggeds do that. We've all been around so many times with our incarnations here on Earth and other places. We've been born in other places around the universe, not just here, some of us. I don't know what the percentages are of that, but we carry within our soul body, layers of woundedness. That's how I term it. And yet we're still so perfectly lovable and beautiful in our layers of woundedness. But within those layers of woundedness is where a lot of shadow stuff lies, and unconscious behaviors that motivate us to do things that are really kind of not very pretty. And I don't know about you guys, but this summer's been a real doozy of a summer for me. And most people I talk to are repeating that same thing, echoing that same statement. And I had to really look deep and hard at some of my shadow aspects that surfaced and were not very pretty. And I got involved with a guy and blah, blah, blah. And that's a great way to start working in a shadow. If you want to start healing your shadow, be in relationship in a very deep way and do everything you can to be as conscious as you can of what surfaces, because it's going to surface if you're really opening your heart. And and this actually plays out in a much broader way. And I know at some point, maybe you've got the question coming up soon, we were going to talk about divine masculine and divine feminine and wounded masculine, wounded feminine. But there's we all embody the microcosm or the macrocosm for I'm saying the words wrong, microcosm for the macrocosm. The shadow selves that we all carry is really played out in a much broader way in society at large, and is a big aspect of the dysfunctional energies on the planet and the imbalance on the planet and the ways that we treat Earth Mother that are really out of balance. And so I'm in the thick of this like the rest of us. But I'm learning to love myself a lot more and embrace that yeah, I have this shadow side, and my goal is to keep on being more conscious and healing through it and healing through it. And I'm not one of these people who says you get rid of your shadow. I don't think that's possible. I think the ultimate goal is to have your shadow be balanced and to be as conscious as you can of the layers that keep on coming up that need healing, need awareness, need compassion, and releasing of the darker energies there.
Oh, good. Well, it has been an interesting year, even through last year. I mean, we started off on this show, I talked with Carrie O'Connor, who does a lot of twin flame work, and she was talking about last year how these gates were opening for the male and the female to balance and align, and that people were going to start seeing their twin flames come back into their sphere of life and relationship much more rapidly, and that happened for me. And the interesting thing about it was that I came to a different conclusion about that over the course of a year than I ever thought I would have last year, which is that I don't really need to be with my twin flame. And not that I don't want a man or don't want to be with a man or am not interested in having a deep relationship with a man, but I don't need necessarily my twin flame. And it's and then this whole thing about how the election worked. Before we go into the sincere apology to the divine masculine, I'd like you to tell people about the event that you had in Washington, the ceremony that you did, and what happened there that maybe wasn't expected.
Oh, that was huge. Yeah, one of the projects, so to speak, that Mother has given me, because we're going to do it again in fall of 2018, is the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering. And the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering is based on the Tibetan prophecy that when 1,000 Taras or goddesses unite, it will bring the divine feminine and compassion back into the earth. And she first gave me the assignment to do that, to organize it in the physical, when I was on Facebook back in the fall of 2015, and there was a group raising money for women raising money to plant trees around the world, Tree Sisters, and they had this mention of this Tibetan myth, they called it, of the 1,000 goddesses. And as soon as I read that, Mother whispered, as she does in my left ear, and said, well, and you're going to organize that in the physical. And I was like, really? Okay, how interesting. And you're going to help, right? And so we thought, there was a woman who's going to organize it with me. We thought we'd do that, the first one in 2017 this year. But then last July, 2016, over a year ago now, Mother woke me up at 5 a.m, which is her way of really getting my ear, and said, this gathering needs to happen in D.C. before the elections, not out at some rural retreat center. And so she gave me less than 3 months to pull it off with, recruiting volunteers. But we did it. We had a gathering on the Washington Mall. We didn't have 1,000 women who gathered, but we invoked more than 1,000 spiritual goddesses. And there were men there as sacred guardians, divine masculine, beautiful beings, and a lot more women than men, but that's okay, And we did ceremony, and a woman named Yeye Amileye, and all the details probably aren't that important, but she's a very gifted ocean high priestess. I knew of her and had reached out to her and asked her if she would lead the ceremony, and she did, with her husband, Chief Olu, supporting her, and it was extraordinarily powerful. 5 weeks before the event happened, again, everything talks to me. I can go out to the trees, they talk to me, stones talk to me. There's a beautiful grove of kind of gnarled old cherry trees in this one quadrant at the base of the Washington Monument. And we thought we were going to do the event in that quad originally. The Park Service moved us a month before the event, and we kind of survived that move. But I walked into this grove of trees as we were scoping out this space, and the trees welcomed me and my friend, and I heard them on the spirit planes, we welcome you. And then the next message was, we've been waiting for this for a long time. And so the trees knew exactly why we were there and what we were planning to do. And the nature spirits came in and blessed us. And so that day of the event, the photography, people were taking pictures of purple, beams of light, and some people were seeing UFOs. And I mean, I don't see all of that the way some people do, but the cameras caught some interesting stuff. And this massive conduit of light came in from the great central sun, which is, as I understand it, there are different ways to term it, is where creator comes from. And we had invoked enough guardians and spiritual beings, plus I had asked some very gifted friends of mine to hold space long distance, light worker friends. And then there were many light workers there that day, and lots of beautiful people came forward for the ceremony. And at this one altar, we had the altars to the 4 directions, the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. At the water altar, and Omileye and her husband went around starting with air and then fire, and then the water altar was the 3rd altar. When we got to the 3rd altar, one of the volunteers brought this massive iron cauldron that was about, 2.5 feet across. It was so beautiful and big and heavy, and she hauled it across from her car, the field, to where we were. And people were invited to fill it with sacred water. Everyone was invited to bring sacred water from wherever they lived and whatever they had collected. And Chief Olu, the husband of Omileye, who is a Yoruba high priest, as soon as he saw this iron cauldron, he couldn't believe it, because there's a god of iron in the Yoruba tradition called Ogun. And he's an extraordinarily gifted man, and he immediately knew that he needed to call forth men, whoever wanted to step forward and have a ceremony for the divine masculine to speak to healing and to apologies to the divine feminine. And when he did that and these men came forward, they had like one finger in the cauldron, another finger on the ground, and he reached up spiritually beyond the 3rd dimension into the 5th, 6th, 7th dimension, because he had the gift to do that. And there was this huge conduit of light energy waiting to come in, and he pulled it in. Someone of his caliber and capacity needed to be the one to pull it in. And it went right into the ground there on the mall in DC. And all of us who were there got a major chakra activation. And every time I talk about it, I can feel the energy. And I don't know if you're feeling the energy, but it's still radiating there on the Washington Mall. And we were at a kind of a secluded location. They had moved us a month before. So we were really close to the Vietnam Memorial. So the Vietnam Memorial area got a really powerful spiritual clearing, which it needed. And then, so one of the light workers who was working long distance to help hold space, she was watching the live cast of it on Facebook. We had a wonderful volunteer that videotaped the whole thing live. And she could see the conduit of light coming in and was doing she's extraordinary. She was helping to hold the space so it wasn't going to be impacted by some other energies that didn't want it to come in. And it radiated the ground for 15 minutes. And she said that it went into the ground. The Hawkins frequency scale was 12,000. And for those who don't know what that is, you can research David Hawkins and his work and the metrics that he came up with for measuring energy frequency. But it also spread out 3 miles out in a concentrated way and cleared out all these heavy energies from the White House, the Capitol building, the Pentagon. And it sounds kind of like, how could this happen? Like, this is beyond belief. A week and a half later, after I sent a spiritual energy report to everyone who had registered, because I felt really obligated to let people know, like, did you know this happened? This is one of the things that we did that was huge. Like Earth Mother, this is why Earth Mother wanted this event. Because people were telling me, Mare, this is impossible. You know, you can't invoke the divine feminine like this, or planet's not ready for it, blah, blah, blah. And this woman contacted me she said, very few people know that I work for the Pentagon, but I need to tell you something. Since the goddess gathering, there's been far less wounded masculine energy here in the Pentagon. And I thought it was me and some shifting that went on at the gathering. And now I'm realizing it was the gathering itself and the energy that came in, because it brought forth a big clearing in DC, which is really humbling, really humbling.
Well, it's wonderful, too, because we keep it does shift it from the idea that we should fear. I think women tend to get into this idea of pointing fingers and fearing. And that's not what Earth Mother is asking for. She says, no, the fear that's in your head, that's illusion. You don't need to point fingers and fear. You know, if you have healed masculine energy and your feminine energy is healed at the same time, you break the illusion in a sense, don't you?
Well, yeah. It's a complicated process because, you know, we're all humans living here, especially those of us who are in the Western culture, which is the predominant part of our population on Earth. I mean, we are the result of centuries and centuries and centuries of a lot of off-balance cultural conditioning. And so, yeah, and I can't, you have to bear with me. It's late here on the East Coast. Did I mention that it was a conduit of divine masculine energy that came in?
I don't think they heard that.
Yeah.
But I do have a question from the chat room, which was what month, when did you do this gathering in DC?
It was October 22nd in DC.
Just before the election?
It was, yep. It was 2.5 weeks before the election. Now, there are a lot of people who will be like, what? You mean you brought Donald Trump in?
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing is Donald Trump, according to some very gifted elders who I know who know the prophecies really well, and I'm sure you've had people there on your station talk about this, but he is exactly who's supposed to be in the White House right now, because he's shaking and rocking and waking people up out of the stupor of, you know, just accepting the government's going to do everything it's supposed to do and do it well, which it hasn't been doing for a long time, but he's really making this known to us. And so, you know, there is a connection between the Goddesses Gathering and the elections. However, it's just a very, 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 very tiny, tiny piece of it. There are so many other forces at play on the spirit realms that brought that man in. Not that I can tell you Mare Cromwell really appreciates him, but I can tell you that Earth Mother Gaia has a lot of love for him, as she has for every single one of us. He's just another one of her children, and she knows him and sees how wounded he is. He's extraordinarily wounded as a human, and he's also one of these adult men who never grew up beyond a very young, sort of immature boy mentality. And this is the insecurities we're seeing playing out all the time with him on Twitter. So yeah, we did that ceremony right before the elections. And it's true. I mean, the part of me scratches my head and goes, I don't know what we did, because darn it. I mean, look what Congress has been doing and all these Republicans, and not to offend anybody who's a listener here, but I'm imagining most of your listeners probably, I don't know. I shouldn't make any statements. You're all beautiful. You're all beautiful.
We can't make any stereotypes about our listeners, and we get into trouble with that. And one of the things that, and when we, like, if you look at their Facebook pages, if somebody who's very far left looks at one of our listeners' pages, because he loves to take pictures of deer, he'll say, "Oh, you're a hunter. You like to shoot deer." No, not at all. And you know, so that what's going on now, what I'm seeing is this polarized stereotyping, which has kind of made everybody crazy. And we don't like to do that with our listeners, because we have people on both sides of the spectrum, and people in the middle who are just like, well, I like that, I don't like that, you know, come on now. And so, you know, I over time, at first when Donald Trump came in, I was, you know, Elizabeth was upset, but then I was more upset with Hillary, because she was like to me she was like the dark male who cheated. Do you know what I'm saying? So it was like, why did you do that? Her shadow feminine was sneaky and corrupt, and how dare she, when she could have been our president and represented women, and you know. So I was on the air going, but I didn't like either of the choices. But now when I look at Donald Trump, I see this guy who just really wants to be liked. He really wants us to like him. And I did his astrology last year for a show, and that's what the astrology said. He can't understand why people don't like him.
Oh, he's so insecure.
Huh.
Yeah, and I apologize if it seemed like I was starting. I mean, I know I was starting to lean towards some stereotyping there, and then Mother caught me.
Yeah.
She's like, no, they're all my beautiful children, all of them. I love all of them. I'm like, right, okay, Mother, you're right. I gotta stop that because it is true. The stereotyping. I mean, we are shifting from the age of separation to the age of oneness. So all this polarization, as I understand it and from what I hear from Mother, it's like the ugly layers are surfacing to be healed. And it's not a fun process, but we're also making it much harder because so many of us have a hard time healing. And it's, you know what? It's really kind of hard sometimes to heal the real deep stuff because you don't really want to mess with it. You don't want to like look at it. It's really ugly and smelly and stinky and it's hard. It's deep work. But this is the time for us to do it. And the energies on the planet, the energies coming in from off the planet are really pushing us. It's time to heal. So getting back to the Thousand Goddesses gathering, yeah, everyone who was there that day got a chakra activation and a big healing, and people were buzzing for days afterwards. I was pretty much flat on my back for the next few days afterwards. I was so wiped. But we're going to do it again. We're going to do it the same time, the third weekend in October in 2018. And if any one of your listeners wants to be a sponsor or support it, go to my website and make a donation. Contact me directly. It's not cheap to put an event on the Washington Mall. And anyway.
Can our listeners go, or are only certain people invited?
Oh, no. Anybody is welcome.
Okay.
And it's going to be done differently next time. I don't have all the particulars yet, but I know it's going to be a bit more ecumenical. We're going to have some mini ceremonies from different belief systems around the planet. There's going to be a more beautiful role for the divine masculine. We're not going to call men sacred guardians. It's going to be a divine masculine, beautiful beings. And it's not just for women, and every woman is a goddess, and anyone and everyone is welcome. And the whole idea is that this is an event where it's not about protest. It's to rise above the politics. We don't invite any politicians. We didn't invite Hillary Clinton last time. It's to basically bring forth the energies and the consciousness and the realization that we have to come back into balance here on Earth between the masculine and the feminine. And yes, this is based on the Tibetan prophecy, but it's about compassion and love and balance between the masculine and the feminine to raise all of us into our divine selves.
Wonderful. I have a question from PM from one of the listeners, and this is a personal question, and you may know the answer, you may not, but this person says, I was told my spirit name through meditation. It was Elewyn, Elewyn, and I was told it was part of Gaia. Does that name mean anything to you, or what do you take of what she was told?
Elewon?
Wyn, Elewyn.
I'm asking right now. I'm afraid I'm drawing a blank. Mother is not giving me any response. You have to be so careful when we hear on the spirit realms. That's a whole sort of ball of wax right there. I don't know who that is. Elewyn. Okay. It kind of sounds like, it feels, honestly, I can say this, it feels like a nature spirit.
To me, it feels elven or nature spirit or tree spirit.
Yeah, something's coming in energetically, spiritually. I can feel an energy coming in, and it feels really actually beautiful and sweet, and not a fairy, but oh yeah, somebody's coming in, and it's a lovely energy, and Mother Gaia likes them. But it's not Mother Gaia herself. It's one of her nature spirit. It feels like an overarching sort of, feels royal of one of the nature spirit groups, but I don't hold on. I know we're about to take a break, so let me do this really fast. I finger dolls. Okay. Is this a fairy? Hearing yes. This is one of the higher ranking. Oh, wow. The energy's really coming in. This is a higher ranking fairy being that, it's really beautiful energy. I hope that helps your listener. That's what I can get right now.
Wonderful.
Feels masculine.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we are about to go to break here. We've got another minute or two. Mare, can you tell people your website again?
Yeah, thank you. It's marecromwell.com. Again, my first name is Mare, M-A-R-E, Cromwell, CROMWELL.com. And I've got teachings from Mother there that you can download. Events coming up in Europe and the United States, et cetera, et cetera. Meditation to be more sacredly connected to Mother, which is a really powerful one. I'm a little biased, but Mother asked for that one. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. We are going to be back right after the break. We're going to get into a letter that Mare was guided to write, which was a sincere apology to the Divine Masculine, which actually helped me out quite a bit this week. You are listening to Cosmic Passport on spacedoutradio.com. Don't go away. We'll be back after this break.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruse, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird? Right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together we own the night.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Elizabeth Anglin and SOR.
Good evening and welcome back to Spaced Out Radio's Cosmic Passport. I am your host, Elizabeth Anglin, coming to you from the Spaced Out Radio Cosmic Cruise Mobile from the desert southwest in Madrid, New Mexico. Yes, it's a commune. I must be a communist. Whoa, be afraid. Be very afraid. No, I'm not a communist. I'm here with Mare Cromwell tonight. And before we get back to talking with Mare, I want to give a big thanks to everyone listening from around North America and the world. And welcome in everyone listening from WQEE 99 Rock, the Key in Noonan, Georgia. It's really, really late. Thanks you guys for listening. Not y'all, because I'm from Michigan, but my folks are from Alabama and Georgia. At spacedoutradio.com, the Canadian side of things on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on KTLK, The Fringe. Thank you all for coming back. Hey, if you're not on a chat room, please get on there, because we're just after we talk this hour, we're going to come up with questions for everybody about Mother Gaia and Earth energies and Earth spirit. So check us out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Go to the Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Facebook, you can follow me at Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth, but especially the chat rooms. The chat room on Spreaker at spacedoutradio.com is active tonight, as is the SOR Space Travelers chat room and Twitter. I will do my best to see your questions, especially if you type them in all caps. Thank you very much. Hey, Mare, when we were in the break, you got a download for Elowin. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, it's not a huge download, but what I started to get was that whoever this nature spirit is, this elven royal figure, royal being, she feels almost king-like, but whoever it is works spiritually or is accompanied by a stag. And it looks like, as I'm tuning in, it looks like a white stag that this Elowin is very closely connected to. And it's a very beautiful, powerful spiritual being. I mean, both of them. But there's something about this connection between the stag and this Elowin elfin king figure that is a very strong connection. So I just wanted to share that also.
That's really interesting. Yeah, we were wondering, Joe Algier in the Spaced Out Space Travelers chat room says, is she talking about me? Because he has these big stags. He just posted a picture from tonight of what is that, a 10-point or a 6-point buck? They come up to his house every night. So, and he's very large. He's a tall guy. So
yeah. That sounds amazing, but this is not a real deer in the physical. This is, this is a beautiful being in the spirit realms that is really stunning. I mean, I can see it right now, like in my third eye, and it's a really, really beautiful spiritual being, but it looks like a stag. But it's not, it's not a physical one.
Okay, wonderful. Well, getting back to that, the idea of stag, which is a male energy, you were guided, and not too long ago, to make a sincere apology to the divine masculine, and to write it in your book. And I was wondering if you want to tell us about how that came about for you.
Yeah, in the process of writing the Great Mother Bible that winter of 2014, where I was anyway, if you want to read a good book, go get that book, the Great Mother Bible. The title wasn't my idea. I started dating this man right early on, as soon as the messages from Mother started coming in. And basically that book started in January 2nd, 2014, where Mother started waking me up. And so this man came into my life. I'd met him a few months before. And he, beautiful, beautiful hearted man, had been through some really traumatic stuff with a former girlfriend that he had lived with, partner for 10 years, just 6 months before had been kicked out by her, so to speak. And for years, I had held this, and I know I'm not alone. A lot of us women, we have this subtle anger or not so subtle anger or resentment toward the male, the masculine. And so he and I were talking about it, and he said to me, Mare, it's not just women who have been really messed over and victimized by the masculine system. Men have also, the patriarchal system. And it was a shock. It was a shock to hear that. I had never thought about it from the man's angle. But it made complete sense, because when you think about it, how many men are actually in control at the top? Well, very few. Count them on maybe 2 hands, 3 hands. And so it prompted me to write a sincere apology to the divine masculine. This is what Mother asked me to do, basically. And I was in the process that winter of writing the book and waking up every morning around 4:15 or 4:30 or 5, and Mother and I would start these conversations really early. And so that happened right shortly after this lovely man and I had that conversation where he shared to me about how many men have been victimized. It's the great, 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 great majority of them by the system also. And so that's where that came from. And it just poured through me like a lot of the writing did for that book, because a lot of it was just, a lot of it was Mother speaking to me, and a lot of it was my processing then what Mother was saying and dealing with my own personal human angst and foibles and all that. So that's the story behind it. I will also, if I may also just share this, when I wrote it and then put it up on the internet, because Mother wanted me to post it and not wait till the book came out, it went viral on the internet, and the feedback was really interesting. A lot of men celebrated that a woman had finally written a piece that was an apology to them. Some men had no idea what to do with it. It was like they just couldn't even register what it was that I was writing. And a number of women were really upset that I wrote it. Like, how dare I speak so kindly to the masculine with all the stuff the masculine has done. And I kept on having to remind some of these people who spoke to me directly that this is an apology to the divine masculine. This is not an apology to the wounded masculine. There's a big difference.
That's good, and it's good to know. What I find so interesting about that Mother Earth wanted you to write this apology is that I live next to and near and have worked with some people who were very radical feminists in the 70s. I worked for Abby Rockefeller at composting toilets at Clevis Moultrie, and she was in a radical group that at one point they said, we don't want to have anything to do with men, we don't need men. And we have a woman here in town, Lucille, who was of that same era, worked in the same circles, and both of them, within a period of time, realized just how wrong they were. And both of them are in deeply committed relationships with a man and have been for years, and will be the first ones to say, that stuff that we were preaching back in the early 70s, the separatist feminist stuff, it's a load of crap. But it had to do with that reaction, that sort of claiming the feminine and then sort of overclaiming it. And I enjoy so much now just having a talk with Lucille, because she still has her trials and her tribulations with her man, but him as a person, how he is as him. And he's not an easy guy. He's not authoritarian or anything. He's just really perfectionistic, etc. So he's a wonderful artist and musician, but he's exceedingly driven and perfectionistic. And she still would not do without him. So I think, what do you sense is happening with women in terms of this? Like, are we, because of the polarization, growing more separate? Are we bouncing off to one end so that we can come back to the middle, sort of like Abby and Lucille have done in their lifetimes? Do you have any sense of where this is going with women?
Well, before I answer that particular question, I want to just say that when you were talking about Abby and Lucille and their statements that they didn't want to have anything to do with men, I could just feel Earth Mother's sadness that women have gotten to that place. Some women, many women, have gone to that place of we don't need men, because that's not how she would like to see women be. So there's an angle there from Mother Gaia for everybody here who's listening. And so to answer your question about what's happening now, first of all, we're all individuals. So there are women who are all over the map when it comes to their perceptions and their healing of their pain in relationship to the wounded masculine energetics that have influenced them personally in this lifetime or past lifetimes or ancestrally. And then there is, a strong cultural phenomenon going on right now, which in many ways is beautiful. I mean, the Women's March in D.C. was a very powerful event, and then there were events all over the world that were connected with it. And that group, I've been tracking them a bit. I didn't go to the march, even though I live so close to D.C. I'm only about 40 miles away. I needed to make money that weekend because I went into debt organizing the Thousand Goddesses Gathering before. But I'm not good at marches. I'm not good at a lot of emotional stuff going on around me because I'm a really sensitive empath. But, I'm kind of maybe beating around the bush here with the answer because it's a complicated question. I can tell you this, that once we get through this bumpy phase where we are on the planet right now, where a lot of stuff is erupting, like, excuse my metaphor, but really bad zits, we are going to get to a place where we all recognize the oneness and live from that oneness place. And this polarization will be a thing in the history that people will read about in the history books, whatever it is they study in the future, and go, well, this doesn't make sense. What does this mean? Polarization. What does this mean? All this separation. Because they won't even know what it is because they won't be experiencing it. And that's where we're headed to. In the meantime, we're in this bumpy place where a lot of stuff is erupting that needs to be healed. And what needs to be healed on the part of the wounded feminine is all of the anger and victimization mindset that a lot of women are mired in. And it's taken me a while to have the courage to be this direct and outspoken about it. And I'm saying this with a lot of love in my heart. And I'm saying this because Mother has a tremendous amount of love for everybody. But it saddens her how so many humans are stuck in their wounds and not stepping forward to heal their wounded aspects. And there is a powerful wounded feminine dynamic of continuing to point the finger outward and saying, you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem, to the men, as in male beings. Whereas what women do to young boys when they're raising them because the mothers are really unhappy with their husbands, and there's this play of this dance of relationships that just keeps on cycling generationally, of this dance between the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine. And we all have to step forward to start healing it. We all have to start pointing the finger back inside ourselves. And all of this anger toward Donald Trump in the White House, and usually I don't even say his name. I usually say like DT or that guy in the White House, but whatever. But everything we see outside of ourselves that we find fault with is what's going on within us that we haven't healed also. And that's classic, probably Jungian psychology when he did all that research on the shadow. But yeah, I could go on and on about this. If you want to ask a specific question now, this is a good time.
Well, I was going to give you a break, and I'm going to read part of the apology that Mare wrote. And she says, I want to apologize for myself and in a most humble way for all women. Some women may not agree with what I'm being guided to share here, but I hope many will. I am sorry for all of the times I wished you thought and acted like a woman. I wanted you to be able to communicate your feelings with me and not escape to your man cave, and was hurt and angry when you needed to disappear to mull your feelings over solo. I felt abandoned. I'm sorry for the painful, cutting way I spoke with you when I was feeling wounded. Oh, just about all of my life. But you as an individual and all of you as a species, it has felt many times as if you are another species, alien. To me, at least, I suspect many women will agree with me on this. I'm sorry for chasing you away with my directness, or worse, my meanness, because I was so afraid and would not let you near me. The very tender, hurting core of me, my heart was so damaged I had to protect it from any vulnerability, from you ever getting too close to it. I'm sorry for hitting you, a few of you, not too hard. At least it did not feel too hard for me, but I guess I don't know my own strength. And I wasn't even dating any of you when I did this. And I kicked one of you when I was 18, really hard. Growing up with 4 brothers, 3 older than I am, I guess I hadn't yet learned I shouldn't be physical like that with grown men. As a grown woman, you were not the brother, and I had not grown up yet. I am sorry for venting my frustration at the world towards you because you're a man. Frustration of the world that has been stacked against women for centuries and centuries. Frustration that we're treated as sex objects and need to be eye candy, but to be more than that threatens the patriarchal system so deeply entrenched in our culture. It's not your fault. You as a person did not set up the events that took place back in history, which led to this time period of so much anger, pain, woundedness on the part of many of us women, and on your part too. There are other men who took up the swords and eventually guns and took away our rights as women to worship on our own, to do our own ceremonies, to the Great Mystery and the Great Mother and more. And you talk for a bit about what men have done to women, but also what the military has done for many, what the world has done to men. I'm sorry that the military has done what the military has done to so many of you at such a young and vulnerable age. So many of you served either voluntarily or not and have come home with a soldier's heart. The wounds in your hearts are very hard to heal, and we as women did not go through these horrors of war, most of us. We can't know the sights that you saw or atrocities you might have been part of because you were told to, or atrocity you've been subjected to also. And you can't tell us because it's too painful to admit to yourself in retrospect. I'm deeply sorry our world has been set up for you to be in these situations, to become a killing machine, or against all of which you previously valued. I want to speak to that for a minute because I was once dating a sniper, a sniper from Vietnam. He was older than I was. He was this wonderful man, but he was so wounded in the fact that, he had over 57 kills. He had been married. He was a widow when I started dating him. And he really felt like he was going to go to hell. Not necessarily because he killed people, but because he began to enjoy doing it. And he almost killed his wife several times when he got back. And everything about this man was protective. Everything that he stood for was being a protector. And I think that women, maybe you can speak to this, maybe we don't get that in the divine masculine, men are protectors, and that's really what they want to be. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things that you just brought up there. One is the woundedness of this man coming back from Vietnam and how warped it got. It got very warped, like it got very warped for him because he took it too far. And to also be, violent with his wife from his own woundedness is not right. It's not right when anybody hits anybody. When I hit those guys when I was young, that wasn't right, But, that, yes, in the archetypal aspects of the divine masculine, one of the roles of the divine masculine is to be the guardian. And, I've actually led workshops just for men on the divine masculine because Mother made me do it. Mother made me do it. It's all her fault. But she'd been pushing me for years, and finally this winter, I said, okay, I'm stepping forward to do it, and I organized a couple of workshops. And I talked in the workshops about the role of the spiritual warrior, which is what we're all being asked to step forward, regardless of whether we're a man or a woman in our physicality. But part of the divine masculine aspect there of embodying the divine or the spiritual warrior is to know that your role is to protect the women and the children. Now, in light of someone who goes to Vietnam and becomes a trained sniper and I guess counts coup, if you want to call it that, of how many lives he took and that he started to enjoy it, I would say very strongly, and I'm seeing this big kind of nod from Mother right now, and she's almost like crossing her arms over her chest going, went too far on that one. It's never the role of the divine masculine to take lives unless they're really defending the women and the children. And if someone starts to enjoy taking lives, if that were in a Native American community, I think that person would get yanked out of the role of having the capacity to even carry a firearm. because in most balanced Native American communities, when a man takes that role of power way too seriously and starts to play with it even more and really enjoy it, then something's way out of balance there. And that man sounds like he got really out of balance, which was easy to understand given that situation, given those rules.
Yeah, it was interesting because he explained how it happened, that, you know, it was normally if you would see somebody and on the other side, then very soon after somebody on that side would see you. So your best bet was just to shoot them. So originally it really came down to shoot or be shot at very shortly. But by the time he got up to 57, it was like a game. It was like playing one of the war games that we see now on the web. And it was just this, you know, yeah, got you. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, took you out. And sometimes he would aim at people who weren't enemy combatants. And that's what he felt, you know, that wounded him the most because it was against his nature. He just wasn't that guy. And going off to such a large war and such a big battle and being told that he had to do this, it worked him seriously.
Oh my gosh, there's so many wounded warriors who have come back. I mean, look at all the suicides from those who were in Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, it is awful, awful, awful. And, you know, and I don't want to get into the root causes of these wars that have been held over the past whatever years, but it's really warped out. It's really imbalanced. It's really sad. And it, unfortunately, it's made the woundedness of these men even more extreme. I mean, already these are, most of them, I would say the great majority of them grew up as boys that weren't allowed to feel any emotions and, you know, were supposed to be tough and rub chicken shit in it if anything hurt them emotionally. And then they go off to war where it's like, forget having any feelings, forget having a sense of humanity. And that's what's been so missing for way too long on our planet, is this way of understanding and living from a respect of humanity. And so, I mean, I've talked to some different friends who were in Vietnam. When I was in my early 20s, I worked as a park ranger in Alaska. I was really blessed with some amazing opportunities in my younger years, and still now I have stuff that comes up that's amazing. But some of my friends that I got to know were bus drivers in the summer, and then they were hunkered into their cabins all winter, and they were returning Vietnam vets that could not handle society anymore. And they went up to Alaska to just be quiet and not deal with anybody to the best of their capacities. And they were so hurting. It was really sad how hurting they were. And yet that was the best they could do to cope with the pain inside themselves. And I don't know how many of them are still up there living like that, or how many of them are still alive. I don't know. I haven't stayed in touch with them. This was in the early 80s. But it made an impression on me of this need for isolation and the incapacity to engage. And every time I mean, I don't have any money. I'm in debt right now from putting these books out. And I'm not telling a sob story because things are starting to really turn around for me. But anytime I see a homeless person at the intersection, I will always give them a little bit of money, and odds are good they're a vet, you know. And it's just, I don't know. It's sad, it's infuriating, and it's wrong. It's so wrong how the system has done this to men, so that then they come home from war, and then it just plays out as really dysfunctional stuff in the family. Sad, really sad, wrong.
Okay, and then you move on, and you, for yourself, you are apologizing for yourself again. I'm sorry for all the pain that you've experienced because of the dark shadow feminine that resides within all of us women, but also yourself. Most of us have not even realized she resides within us, and she can take us over at times. And when that happens, our behavior is downright ugly and hateful. The side of us wants to hurt others, both women and men, and will take no prisoners. And the dark shadow feminine is conniving, manipulative, resourceful, and goes for blood. She's scary. She scares me. but I've learned to identify her within me and see the hurt that she has been sitting on and heal that. For the most part, I, like you, am still a work in progress. We were talking the other night on the show. We had a round table on Friday, and I can say that as the only woman on the round table, we got into the pain that some of the men on the round table were feeling with their exes, with having been in committed relationships and having been left or having been sort of tossed aside, as it were, and then sort of having this conniving, they'd be left with the kids, but they'd still be paying child support to their ex-wife. How many times does this come up, that they're just men who are trying to do their best, and then they come across the shadow feminine in their personal relationships and are thrown for a loop?
Well, I think every one of us can probably speak to it happens all the time. And this is what I was speaking to earlier about how this dance between the wounded feminine and the wounded masculine becomes like this self-perpetuating spin, but it doesn't have to continue. But I mean, even this summer for me, with all the work I like to think I've been doing on myself, I started in getting involved with this man, and so much unhealed stuff surfaced in me. And I started to experience this vindictiveness, this wanting to just create pain for him and seek revenge. And I was like, oh my God, this is really scary. There's still these pieces of me that are unhealed. And it's really sad, and it's really a reality, but it doesn't have to perpetuate any more than we let it, if we can really focus on healing that. But we women, we can really wreak havoc, and men's hearts. To all the men listening out here, this is from a place of love saying this. You have such sensitive hearts. You really do. It's beautiful. And women do too, but there's a sensitivity to men that, and I'm being very general here, so bear with me. And I can also be quite honest and say in my lifetime, and I'm in my 50s now, I have hurt many men's hearts, and part of it was just my sheer woundedness. And I've actually, on the spirit plane, tried to apologize to all the men who I've really hurt. But we can really deal it. And when we get mired in our shadow stuff, we're not nice. We're really not nice. And if we're going to get stuck in that place of not feeling the capacity or wanting to forgive, then we're not helping matters at all.
It sounds reasonable. So going forward after this apology for you, did you receive any follow-up information from Mother Earth about what Mother Gaia would like to see happen in terms of men and women working together in the future? Finding out about your shadow, healing your shadow, and then walking forward whole. Is that what she's really asking us to do?
She really is. And again, it comes down to, in a simplistic way, and it's not a simple way, but a simplistic way to put it, is we are moving into the age of oneness. And, people used to say that to me years ago, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's like airy, foo-foo stuff. But I understand it better now that we've been living for so many centuries and centuries with this sense of separation, the age of separation, that it's kind of hard for us to even wrap our minds around what does oneness mean. But as I'm starting to understand it, we are being called with the Christ conscious energies that are pouring into the planet right now. And Earth Mother's been going through some big shifts, and actually that's a whole piece I would love to share with everybody here tonight too. But before I get to that, let me just say this, that we're actually moving into a phase on the planet where in the prophecies they call it the time of peace. You can call it the age of oneness, and it's really about sacred union energetics. It's about us being so balanced as humans, as two-leggeds within ourselves, that we are embodying our divine masculine and our divine feminine aspects in a really beautiful, balanced way. And from that place, then, we can connect with a beloved so that we merge into the oneness in our experiences together. And frankly, I'm really intrigued what that feels like, because I have not experienced that myself yet. But there are some who are already here on the planet who have been experiencing that, and they're the ones leading the way and teaching about it. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But that's where we're headed. But for us to get there, we have to heal. And we have to forgive. And this is where the work of, Archbishop Tutu and Nelson Mandela and the reconciliation efforts in South Africa, I mean, they brought forgiveness forth in such a powerful way and had the courage to go deep into looking at the horrendous stuff that went on in South Africa. And all of us are being asked to do this, but to do it in a way that you know you're not alone, that you're supported. You're supported by your fellow sisters and brothers who are stepping forward also, because it's really hard to do on your own. To really go deep into your shadow self and start to really heal it.
So I have a question about a current event that I've gotten myself into trouble with that in my mind really has to do with forgiveness. And also with every living thing having a spirit. So this whole thing about the statues and the people who were protesting KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, whatever they want to call themselves, protesting the removal of the statues, but also the removal of the statues. To me, this kind of got out of hand this week where when my best male friend, I was sick and he literally attacked me because I said, you know what? I used to see the Southern statues when I went to Alabama every year as a kid. My family, we would talk about what happened in the war. And, and I love those statues of the guys on horseback because they're really beautiful. And he said, oh, well, those were put up by the KKK to put, the former slaves down. And I said, yeah, but they're really beautiful. And in my world, statues hold nature. They hold nature spaces. Like they make it so that if somebody wants to come in and develop an open space, it's less likely to happen. So that's fun. And the other thing is, a statue is its own thing. But the whole situation got really discombobulated where I was being called basically a know-nothing, brainwashed racist, which my Southern family, they fought for the North in Alabama. They were not racist at all. They were midwives and healers, and they healed everybody. My grandfather and great used to pick up people along the road, young black men and women who got out late at night and needed a ride home so the KKKers wouldn't get them. My father was afraid of the KKK as a kid, and he would say the same thing. No, I love the statues. So, what is this? Is this the polarization? Are the statues representing both sides of a shadow equation for this unhealed part of us, or is it just craziness?
The statues represent different things to different people. I mean, obviously for you as a kid, and it sounds like for your father, they represented something beautiful. They represented, some horse and a man on a horse, and it helped to hold space so that wasn't going to be developed. And, and I agree, these statues are beautiful. I mean, that usually a lot of money went into creating these statues. And then they do represent, though, an ideology and a suppression and a whole race of people being terribly, terribly treated and killed and all that. And so, but they didn't represent that to you. So this is where, honestly, if we really can all step back for a second and go, what is my personal perception, and how much of my personal perception is actual truth as opposed to just my little piece of it, which is my sacred truth? We don't do that enough. We want everyone to think the way we think, we want everyone to agree with us, and it's just not possible because we all are the centers of our own universe. And so, I grew up next to Robert E. Lee Park, and frankly, I didn't really give it any thought as to who he was, other than I remember his name in the history books. And now I found out that I grew up in Baltimore, has changed the name of that park to whatever, some other name. And I thought, wasn't that interesting? I guess they needed to do that because he was one of those leaders in the Confederacy that wasn't very nice. And yet my perception, my sacred truth was, it was just a name for a park. It's just some man that was in the history book. And that's from ignorance. I admit that. So that's one of the things that's hard on the planet right now is the energies that are afoot are feeding a polarization if we literally let ourselves get sucked into it. And as soon as we shut our minds down and refuse to listen to the other person, like your friend was not listening to you very well. If we can really learn how to listen in such a way that we can turn our ego dial way down and listen to what the other person's saying and feel the energy in their heart, we would not be having all of this polarization. We would start to realize, well, you know what? Your angle on that's kind of interesting. And the more I'm really thinking about it, I get a piece of that feels kind of accurate. Now, when it comes to extreme behaviors and extreme attitudes, a line has to be drawn. And Mother's very clear on that. A line has to be drawn. She really has no acceptance of these patterns of killing other people because of what their skin color is or their belief system or whatever that is. I mean, that she just scratches her head and says, enough already. I mean, there's a lot that she scratches her head over. It's like, enough already. And granted, Mother Gaia doesn't have a head. I know she doesn't. She's our planetary caretaker and all that. But if you can visualize this beautiful mother figure having a head, she scratches it a lot.
Okay, so you're saying Mother Gaia is our planetary caretaker. I haven't really asked you what is Mother Gaia in additional to that? Is she a spirit? Is she a compendium of spirits? Is she part of the oneness? Does she have a very separate personality? And also, what was your path to knowing that you were really getting messages from Mother Gaia and not just some part of yourself?
Yeah, well, let me answer that second question first. When I did that ceremony with that really gifted Algonquin man, and this booming voice started coming into my head right after the ceremony, it was a voice I had never heard before that was mine. And I knew it was her. Now, the first book I put out with her, and that's one you've already referred to, Messages from Mother, Earth Mother. You may have noticed in that book that I talk about, in that book, I don't say Mare. I'm having this conversation with Mother. It's all couched within the context of a woman named Sarah meets Mother in the forest, and it's a lovely story about Sarah and Mother has messages for the world, because it was terrifying me that I'm having these conversations with Earth Mother, which a lot of people don't even think she exists. They just see her as some fairy tale figure. It was freaking me out that I was talking with her like that, and she wanted me to write this book, and it was written in 5 weeks, and then she wanted it out, and it was printed, 2.5 months later, 2 months later. And mind you, I'd done all of that really fast because I was desperate to heal from lymphoma. So the reason I know it's her is I've had numerous elders say to me, they can tell I'm working directly and very closely with Mother Gaia. One elder, Rainbow Thunderheart, Benny LeBeau, called me the voice of Earth Mother. And another elder, who's the head of the World Council of Elders, Woody Vaspera, said to me that my work with Mother is in the prophecies, that someone will come along who will surrender her at the level that I have. And if it weren't for that verification or validation from these outside elders who also can communicate with her, I would not be doing what I'm doing. I'd still be having my gardening business and making more money. So that answers one question, I hope. That's how I know it's her. And I can feel her. I can feel her love. It comes into my heart when she feels, I can feel her energy ripple through me when she really loves what someone's saying or something that's happening that I'm hearing about. When she really is supportive, I get this ripple of energy at my spine. again, it's not Kundalini, but it's this beautiful energy I feel. As far as who she is, this is where it gets really interesting, actually. What I have come to understand about her is, first of all, she's our planetary caretaker, which means that she's not Earth itself. She is a very ancient spiritual being who was assigned the role of being our planetary caretaker. She came in from another part of the universe. And she's very, very ancient, and she will exist beyond the lifetime of Earth. Now, I'm saying she all this time. There's something really interesting here. The mother, Earth Mother, who I did that ceremony for and with, and she came into my spirit body in 2012, is actually no longer here on the planet. We have a new Earth Mother, and that's why I've made the shift from saying Earth Mother to Mother Gaia. And it's a really wild thing, but this is part of the ascension that's going on right now, is close to 900,000 years ago, give or take a few years, a really powerful spiritual being came in to be our new planetary caretaker. But what happened when she came in, because of the energies on the planet being as dark as they were then, under the influence of some pretty heavy, not so positive beings, she got captured and was held captive in a particular energetic vortex on the planet. And I can tell you the vortex was in Costa Rica. And in 2012, she was discovered by some very gifted light workers. And they were like, whoa, so you're supposed to be Mother Gaia or Gaia. And she was able to be released from that vortex. And she informed these light workers that she actually had a sacred consort partner who tried to come in with her some 900,000 years ago. But he got captive. He was captured and held off planet in a particular sort of vortex of captivity. And he's come back now in and been all cleaned up. She's been cleaned up. And they actually have an offspring. This is where it gets kind of wild. I call them the Holy Trinity now. I really do. So their offspring, according to one of the light workers I work with, who is very intimate with all of this phenomena, this light worker calls this offspring Geodesica, because this beautiful spiritual being that is the offspring of Mother Gaia and Gaia looks like a geodesic shape. And she's actually not necessarily more feminine or masculine, but she's slightly more feminine, so I say she. And every day when I do my prayers in the morning, I call out to Mother Gaia and Guy and Geodesica, because they're the ones who are here now. And the former Earth Mother that I did the ceremony for in 2012 is no longer here on the planet. She's actually recouping in another dimensional space in the universe, because it was a pretty tough job holding the space here on Earth. And I'm not saying tough just because of what humans have done, but because of a lot of dynamics between beings from off planet, and a lot of battling and a lot of control stuff and a lot of dark stuff's been going on Earth. And the Star Wars movies are not that far off. And if you read the 50 Messages from Sasquatch, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's, frankly, Earth Mother has seen worse than this, or Mother Gaia. Our planetary caretaker, the new one, is relatively new. The other one was there for a long time. They've seen worse than what's happening on the planet right now. And if more people understood that, they would probably step back a little and go, oh, okay. Not that what's happening is good and positive for Mother Gaia, but the planet's been through a lot. So we have Mother Gaia, who's kind of like the white Gandalf compared to the gray Gandalf. She's really powerful. And the interesting thing is, as of the inauguration weekend this past January, she was ready to finally come down and be working from the fifth dimension here on Earth, whereas before, when she was discovered in 2012 and released from that vortex and then needed time to recoup and get all cleaned up, she was not operating that actively within the earthly realms. And it's actually been a pretty tough past few years for me. I don't want to say any sob stories here because things are going great for me now, but because of this dynamic of the shifting between the Earth Mothers, the planetary caretakers, it's been a bit rocky for me. And now I'm back on track with our new Gaia, which is really, really great.
Well, wonderful. So, and it's not just Gaia, but there's Guy, the male counterpart, and Geodesica. Are they all working at this time, or are they?
Oh yeah. No, they're all working at this time. And Geodesica has got the most sparkly, beautiful energy. She's lovely. She's really lovely. And Guy is lovely too. He has stepped forward more to be the divine masculine aspect of the planetary caretaker role here on Earth. So it's about the sacred union energetics. Because it's, to my understanding, well, no, I won't say that actually, because I did get in touch with that one time this winter, that the former Earth Mother, who's no longer here, her sacred union partner, she was very close to Metatron. And that was an interesting insight that came in one night in ceremony. And he misses her because he's still here helping to hold down the fort a bit during the ascension, but he's not going to last a lot longer. He's ready to head out once things calm down here on the planet, from what I understand. A lot of shifting going on.
I've noticed that. I do some healings, and I used to do a lot more Metatron work in the early 2000s, and now it's just kind of like, he's like, no, not right now. You know,
well, I think he's busy too.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, I don't know. These multidimensional beings, I don't really understand them all that well, but they can juggle multiple things simultaneously. But I actually don't tune in with him that much. He's not been a being that I work that closely with, and I could do that more, but I'm not feeling called now that I'm working so closely with Mother Gaia and Geodesica and other parts of my spiritual team, other beings. I have a lot of love for Metatron. I don't fully understand him, honestly.
Yeah, and when I worked with him, it was about moving and shifting energy out of the physical body and out of the physical space. So, and now I just work with Mother Mary and Archangel Michael for that. But it's different. When we come back, you were talking about the sacred union between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. You have also been doing some work with the Mary Magdalene energy, and I'm wondering if that plays into this or if that's ancient history.
Oh, it definitely plays into it. Oh, very, very, very much. Oh, yes. She's very much here, present with working with a lot of women. She just came in spiritually, actually, as you asked the question. I could feel her come in. No, she's very much here on the spirit plane supporting us and wants, yes, I'll say yes, a big fat yes.
So when we come back, we're going to go to a break in a little bit, but I'm going to shoot some questions your way about Mary Magdalene, who she was, who she is as a spirit helper and healer, and also divine union, because there's a lot that's been written sort of in the fringes where we live that that talks about her role as being very different than what we've been led to believe by the Catholic Church, or by what we've been passed down in terms of religion. And so I want to hear all about that, because I think that she's pretty cool. And also divine union. I have a soft spot for guys. I had a good father. I spent a lot of time hanging out with my dad at all male events, and I can tell you that I would go to posse get-togethers where it was all adjunct police force guys on horses, and I was the only girl there. And I can tell you, when a bunch of guys get together and they talk about their families, it is the sweetest, most tear-jerking, most gentle, most unbelievable thing to ever witness is these guys in uniforms with guns talking about their children. Anyway, divine union to me, I hope that we get there, because I've seen so many people, my father included, who have really, really wanted to be in that space and to be in that space with their families. So, yeah. So I do want to talk about that and Mary Magdalene and Christ. So before we do that, could you tell people how to contact you, Mare, and how to spell your name?
Sure. Again, it's marecromwell.com, and that's M as in Mary, A-R-E, and then Cromwell, C-R-O-M-W-E-L-L.com. You can also find me on Facebook just under my name, Mare Cromwell, and I have a couple of pages there that are like the Great Mother Books page and Mare Cromwell's books, and I actually have a Sacred Gardening page too on Facebook, which is fun. And I'm on Twitter at Earth Mother MSGS messages, just abbreviation for messages, Earth Mother MSGS. So I'm not on Instagram that much because I can only do so much. It's like I need to clone myself like the rest of us.
Yeah, it is craziness. Well, when we come back, Wyatt, if you're still in the room, got to ask some questions about sacred gardening. We have Wyatt, one of our Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers, is a gardener. He is a man who has been given the injunction to work with plants, so from spirit. So, Wyatt, come up with some questions for us. Anybody else who's been gardening, working with plants and earth energies, we'll talk about that too. And also the relationship between Mary Magdalene and Christ, and not just back then, but what's going on now. This is spacedoutradio.com. You're listening to Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin. We are going to come back at the top of the hour with Mare Cromwell and continue talking about not just the divine feminine, because, hey, we're not all that, but also the divine masculine and what's going on with the planet and the shifts in the planet at this time, in this place, on this world now. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be right back after this break.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories
From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Elizabeth Anglin and SOR.
Good evening and welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. You are listening to Cosmic Passport, and I am your host, Elizabeth Anglin, coming to you from the Spaced Out Radio Cosmic Cruise Mobile. I'm coming to you live from the Desert Southwest, talking to Mare Cromwell from the East Coast, and we are talking about both the Divine Feminine and the Divine Masculine and Mother Gaia, and the changes and the shifts that have been going on this planet since 2012 and before. We want to thank all of you who are listening in from North America and the world, and welcome back everyone listening from WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia at spacedoutradio.com. on Spreaker, everyone on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, and the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and KTLK, The Fringe. Thanks, guys, for coming back and listening to us in the third hour. We're in the third hour. We've had the 7-minute stretch for the last hour. And we're going to start off by talking a bit. We're going to start off with talking a bit about Mary Magdalene and the Divine Union. And I guess my first question for you, Mare. Oh, before I ask the question, how can people get in touch with you?
They can reach me at my website, which is Mare Cromwell, M-A-R-E Cromwell.com, where all my events are posted. I'm about to go to Europe and do some events in October, and various things for sale, including my 3 books. They can also reach me on Facebook. I just reached the 5,000 person friend limit, so you can follow me. And Twitter at Earth Mother MSGS Messages on Twitter. Don't call me, though. I have my phone on mute all the time. I won't answer the phone. I might get back to you. No, I'm trying to get better at that. But anyway.
Great. Okay. So I did want to talk about Mary Magdalene, and you were talking about Mother Gaia and Guy and their child, Geodesica. But wasn't there a divine union before this, or with Mary Magdalene and Christ, or what's up with that?
Yes, there was. Hold on for a second. Take a drink. It's getting kind of late here on the East Coast, so bear with me here. Yeah, Christ and Mary Magdalene, their divine plan, if you want to word it that way, of why they came together at that time on Earth 2,000 or so years ago, 2,000 years ago, into their adulthood, they came to bring divine union, sacred union energetics. And from what I understand from one of a really, really gifted light worker I know, and she's really good at these accurate measurements of things, she said they only achieved 2% of their goal because of what played out with Christ and the crucifix and all that. And but they were here, and they were very conscious of their call to be here on the planet at that time to bring sacred union energetics then. And it was in one way you could look at it as an attempt to bring the ascension in at that time, but it didn't make it. There were too many forces that just blocked it. And so then Mary Magdalene had to flee to France. And they have a child. They had a child named Sarah. And Mary Magdalene, for those who don't know this, actually started a mystery school in France, and it was kept secret only up until a few years ago. I think it went public maybe 10 years ago or so. But for some 2,000 years, there was a mystery school for women to continue to learn the wisdom that Mary Magdalene brought forth. And I don't know a lot about what she taught in that mystery school. What I can share is this, it just so happens that if you do a lot of ceremony and you invoke certain spiritual beings enough in the ceremony, they will show up, you know, and they show up when you invoke them usually, and then they will really show up and start talking to you and saying, okay, well, you've been calling for me all this time. Well, let me tell you what I need to share with you. I know why you're calling to me. Let me give you my wisdom. So I was leading a womb wisdom workshop here at my place that involves sacred fire ceremony for everybody at the end of the day. And in the morning before the workshop started at 1 in the afternoon, Mary Magdalene, I could feel it was her energy, and I knew immediately it was her. She came into my space on the spirit plane and started giving me these images, downloading these images. And they're very clear images. And I was taken back, like, wow, okay, cool. This is kind of exciting that you're communicating with me on this level. But she gave me images of, and I was raised Catholic. I was a good little Catholic girl, or tried, whatever, guilt-laden and all that stuff that I'm trying to release since then. But in the church, in the very front of the church, and I don't know all the Latin names for all the various implements and pieces of furniture there or whatever, architecture, but when the priest is facing everyone and his back is to what's behind him, there is that chamber that in the church that I was growing up in, there was two little gold doors that opened up, and the chalice went in there that had the sacred hosts and the blood of Christ, whatever. And what Mary Magdalene was showing me was that chamber is actually the women's yonis. That is, we are the Holy Grail. And I know this is not news to a lot of people. And if you read any of Dan Brown's work, then you read about, the Holy Grail and Mary Magdalene there. But what Mary Magdalene was showing me was that we women have every right, and we need to empower ourselves to manifest the golden doors in front of our yonis to only allow in the sacred energies we're meant to allow in that are for our highest good. And those golden doors have been violated for women for centuries and centuries. And that within our womb space is that chalice. And then she came in like a few days after that, a week after that, I was doing some ceremony, and she started teaching me more about the Holy Grail chalice that is our womb space. And, it really is shaped like a chalice when you think about the fallopian tubes and our ovaries and the uterus and then the vagina. And what we are being called to do as women, and this is part of our healing, and I hope that every woman can hear this eventually, is that we need to fill up that chalice with our self-love first, before we think anyone else is going to fill it up. And to depend on someone else external to us to fill up the love that feels void within ourselves is only going to keep us wounded and half empty. And so she gave me this image of the chalice just dripping with this beautiful golden elixir, and it was dripping down from our hearts, our heart chakra and the chakras above, the sacral chakra and the solar plexus, but dripping with love for ourselves and connected with the divine love of Creator and Mother, and just filling up that chalice to overflowing. And from that place, we really start to embody the divine feminine. And then we are ready to really embrace the divine masculine in our lives so we can have sacred union. And I'm actually sharing more now than I think I was ever even conscious for. So Mary Magdalene's here right now in the spirit planes with me and with all of us, helping me with this in this moment. But one of the messages that came through in writing the Great Mother Bible with Mother that year of 2014 is toward the end of the book. Mother talks about how all women were meant to be juicy. And I know, it's close to 2 a.m. my time. I hope people are not offended by what I'm saying. I'm not talking about profanity. I'm not talking about, I'm not coming up with a word right now. But anyway, we women are meant to be juicy because our juiciness is part of the juiciness of life on earth. And just as much as a flower has its nectar, we're supposed to be juicy. And our energies have been so shut down for so many centuries. This is why I love leading womb wisdom workshops, because we have to start healing those repressed energies, because our health issues related to our womb space of hysterectomies and ovarian cysts and all the repressed emotions that get stuck there in our womb space are what need to be healed. They're part of the whole healing process that we're all being called to step into. And men have an energetic womb space too. It's not just women.
Well, and that would go. This is for women, all you guys who are listening. This goes into it because I'm actually suffering from something right now, which I'm doing a lot of work to get the emotions out of my womb space so that I don't end up kicking off and leaving the planet. And sorry, Alan, in the Spreaker chat room. Sorry, it's too much information, I know. But when we do that, we do end up healing the shadow, because there's a lot of sadness in there. There's a lot of regret in there. I'm an alien abductee. I've lost a lot of children to aliens, and at the time that it happened, my mama bear felt like she was not a good enough woman. because when you're going to bring children into the world, you should be around to take care of them and nurture them and protect them. And man, was she mad, and man, was she sad, and man, did that all get stuck in there at the, you know. And so part of healing that is healing everything about the woman who is not able to be fully expressed. And if you're an alien abductee and you're female and you can't protect your children, or aliens take, you know, babies away, you've got to deal with that. And then there's all this other stuff about, you know, how come your hips are so big and that sort of thing that the world does. Yeah, we do need to heal from that.
You know, in my lymphoma experience, all of my lymph nodes that were enlarged were only in my womb space. They weren't any other lymph nodes in my body. Yeah, this is a very real thing and a very epidemic situation in our society of all those repressed emotions. And I would welcome any man listening tonight to also recognize that you have an etheric womb space. And so you also have repressed energies within your etheric field. And you have been a woman in past lives, because we've all been men and we've all been women. And so this is very real for all of us.
Okay, so but then we have questions coming in from the chat room, which I think we should address. So Dennis says, I get the feminine nature. I do not get the focus on women, on woman and nurturing of the male. I'm aware of the metaphysical analogy, but it still feels like a union. So the union, you know, as we're talking about this as women, Dennis is saying, it still feels like a union men do not belong in. So, you know, some of this juicy stuff that we're talking about, where do men, you know, where do they come in besides just their womb space or whatever where do they fit in this union picture?
No, that's a really good question. Thank you, Dennis, for that. I'm a woman, so I'm speaking at it from a feminine angle. And honestly, I was told this winter that I was not in touch with my masculine side at all. I was like, what? Are you kidding? I feel like I've wanted to be a man most of my life. I didn't even want to be a woman. But we're speaking from me, Mare, and I'll try to tune into Mother on this level too right now, because she is right here. Where the men fit in a really beautiful, sacred way is recognizing, one, how beautiful you are. Love yourself. Get in touch with your heart. Drop from the head to the heart, and you know, cultivate the aspects of you that are the highest energetics of what are considered masculine, like being the protector, being heroic, being powerful in a way that you have the power to protect the children and the women. Yes, you're more physically oriented. Use that in such a way so that it's for the highest good for the planet, and not just beefing yourselves up muscle-wise so that I don't want to be too stereotypical here, and I know that I'm starting to sound that way. I did, before we started here, before the interview, I did pull out some of the archetypes of the divine masculine that I have collected in the workshops that I've done for men. These are some energetics to really look at. And some women may take issue with this, so that's something to look at too if you take issue with it. There's the God archetype. There's the King Father archetype. There's the priest archetype. This is from a man named Sunyata Satchidananda. There's the warrior archetype. Then there's the lover archetype and the sage archetype. And all of these are powerful, energetic sort of fields to start to explore and examine. How are you stepping into these in a way that is balanced and in recognizing that the divine feminine is to stand next to you, not below you or above you, but next to you. Now, Matthew Fox, who I really love as a writer and a spiritual thinker and theologian, wrote a book called The Hidden Spirituality of Men. And within his book, he talks about the 10 archetypes being Father Sky. The next is the Green Man. The next is, and some of these don't really make sense to me because I'd have to reread the book, but Icarus and Daedalus is the classic father-son relationship that plays out with fathers and sons. And then there's the hunter-gatherer archetype, traditional male role of, being the provider. The spiritual warrior archetype, the masculine sexuality and numinous sexuality. That's a big one to bite off. Okay, masculine sexuality and numinous sexuality. And this is how Matthew Fox describes it. Human diversity is seen through the variety of sexual expression in the cosmic wonders of DNA. I think he's starting to border there on sacred union, divine union, energetics, but he doesn't say that in those words. So another archetypal energy with authentic masculine or divine masculine is our cosmic and our animal bodies, rediscovering the amazing human body with its energy centers and capacity for evolution and reproduction. This is interesting. The blue man, this is one of Matthew Fox's archetypes. The blue light in every man's heart and our awareness of expanding consciousness. That sounds beautiful. Then there's Earth Father, who's the partner to Earth Mother, which in the case of where we are now would be Guy, who's in sacred union relationship with Mother Gaia. And then the last one from Matthew Fox's list is Grandfather Sky, the grandfatherly heart and contribution which this wisdom can make, including our understanding of death. These are lists that I've just sort of read off there. I know that's a mouthful there that I just kind of spit out there. But okay, let me tune in to Mother Gaia. Okay, let me just do this.
We have another question.
I bet we do.
From the room.
Okay. All right. From Mother Gaia's angle, what I'm hearing her say is, one, she loves all of us so much, and she wants us to remember her love and connect with her love. Oh, this is a big piece. Okay, it's coming in. So many men have been raised by wounded mothers, and the wounded mothers were wounded because of their mothers and their husbands, the way their husbands treated them or ignored them. And so this childhood wounding has been really hard for a lot of men to heal, because deep down in their subconscious psyche there is this suffering and this pain from not being treated right by their mother, not being allowed to individuate as a young boy to being a mature young man. And Donald Trump is a classic example. And so, Mother Gaia's message is to heal. And again, we've been repeating that, so I don't want to sound like a broken record, but to cry. Open your heart up. Let the pain come forth in tears, because crying is so painful. And there are groups that are out there, not enough to support men and being vulnerable and authentic. And the Mankind Project has been doing beautiful work for a long time, and then some other projects that I'm probably not even aware of. But there are not enough venues and opportunities for men, and a lot of men are so afraid to step forward and show up at a group that's a support group for men or a new warrior training group. I think the Mankind Project does it probably the best as far as a really recognized group. So many men, as I understand it, feel so alone because they've never learned how to be in a beautiful, solid, real relationship with other men. Now, it sounds like in your situation, Elizabeth, when you were a kid and you were out with your father and the posse and the men we're talking about, that sounds beautiful. If every man could experience that and have it be a healing space, amen.
I think every woman needs to. What I want to do, I want to make a film of that, because I want to show. This was in the 80s. And these guys had been in the posse together for years. And this was a common thing that they would, after whatever event, they would go to an RV, open up beer, and talk about their families. And I think women who are so mad with men, who feel that their fathers didn't care or their fathers were aloof, and even the sons, if they could have been flies on the wall of that conversation, because a lot of times men didn't know, and they were willing to be in a space with each other where this whole thing about being a father and being a protector and watching these people that they had brought into the world grow, they didn't know what they were supposed to do. They didn't know if they were supposed to be lenient and permissive, or if they were supposed to rein in, their sons or their daughters. They didn't know if it was going to turn on all right. I mean, there is this overwhelming sense that there was so much about being a father and having families that was dealing with the unknown. They had no idea. Should I buy my daughter a car? Will she wreck it and hurt herself? Or will it be wonderful and she'll get a job and she'll feel that she's she's becoming herself. Those were the kinds of conversations that I was privy to in this group of men, that they would ask each other questions, and sometimes they still wouldn't know. And they'd come back to, well, it really depends on your daughter.
Yeah.
And it'd be a kind of humility. Well, it really depends on that. So I want to get to another question that Dennis posed, which is, what about gender in terms of that there are more sexual genders than being straight? He said that he once got a disturbing comment from one priestess of Gaia who stated that being gay, bi, etc. interrupts the feminine. What do you think about that?
Oh, gosh. Well, I can tell you that Mother Gaia loves everyone. Everyone. She doesn't care what your gender is. She doesn't care who you're making love with. The key thing is how much love is being pumped out into the world and into the universe at large. Really, that's what it's about. I don't know who that other person was who considers herself a priestess of Gaia, but I don't think she's in touch with Gaia's heart the way she could be.
Because she may be using this idea of being a priestess of Gaia to further her own agenda.
Well, there's a lot of that goes on. So, oh my gosh! I'm trying not to do that to the best of my capacity. I am human, but it's not my agenda; it's Gaia's agenda. She loves everyone so much. It's like beyond words. Her love.
Okay. Well, we're going to take another tangent because this is a paranormal show. But first of all, Wyatt has asked some gardening questions and some first spirit questions. Okay. He says, ask Mare about beings such as elementals, fairies, and spirits, and how they relate to Mother Gaia and her perception of things as she sees them, and what we can do as home gardeners to help with all of the, I guess, weird stuff going on in the world. So how can you make a garden that helps the shift and heals the world?
I actually also lead sacred gardening workshops. I love doing those. First of all, this planet, as I'm sure all your listeners are very aware of, is a multidimensional space of many different spiritual beings in different dimensional levels. And so the nature spirit realms being the fairies, the pixies, and there are names for all of them in all these different indigenous languages, and even in our own English language. I don't understand all of them. It's pretty complex. And they are a very integral part of the balance here on the earth. And they have a role to play that's powerful and yet been greatly ignored, and they've been shunted into being made fairy tale figures. So I love to work with the fairies and the pixies and those that are involved in my garden space. I also work with, in the Algonquin language, they call them the Manitous, which are the overarching nature spirits of the region. And what I do, and the invitation is for every single human to do this, is to reconnect with them and to honor their sacred role in the dance of life and flowering and seed gestation and germination. And when we honor them, and what I have been taught to do by largely by a Cherokee teacher I apprenticed with for 14 years, and some other teachers have taught me a little bit more, and then now I actually work directly with them, and they tell me what to do, is I offer a lot of tobacco. I do ceremony in and around my garden. I make almost everything I do in the garden. I do it from a place of loving them up. Just love them up. Love the plants up. Love the soil up. And I have a little garden patch that my landlady has allowed me to take over because she moved out, and the soil was really bad. Oh my gosh. And I don't need to get into all the details about amending the soil, but I got the guidance, and they specifically requested, the nature spirits specifically requested, because I have all these crystals and hanging crystals. They said, we want the one with the dragonfly in it. It's one of those, Swarovski crystals. And this little garden space the energy in it is so beautiful. And every time I go in, I move the energy. I go in and I connect with Creator and Mother. I activate my energy body with that sacred energy. The invitation is for all of us to do this. And this is how Indigenous peoples have gardened for eons. It's all ceremony. It's all recognizing the sacred energies that come forward in a garden that are not just humans planting a seed and going, okay, how come that tomato looks so bad? Plunk. I hope I'm answering your question, Wyatt. Questions. It's really a sacred dance, and they are our teachers as much as we are maybe the caretakers, and then they gift you. The cool thing is then they start gifting you when they really like you. Like, I've been gifted by a crystal in my compost pile by the fairies, and they gifted me with an iris corm one day on my front porch steps when I had my house in Baltimore. And there was no note or anything. This iris corm just showed up on the step. And I put it in the ground, and the next year I got this one blossom of an iris that I'd never seen before. And I had a gardening business for 17 years, and I'd seen a lot of irises. It was a really, really ancient heirloom iris. I found out that they grow at Mount Vernon, where George Washington used to live. Apparently there's some there. So they love to gift you. And the fairies and the pixies, when it comes to our plants, actually metaphysically help the plants to pull more minerals out of the soil to really enhance their growth. And if you work with them, they will bless you. It's so amazing. It's such a beautiful sacred dance. I hope everyone's really listening and taking this to heart. And Mother Gaia loves them, and she wants people to wake up to them again from a place of reverence.
Wonderful. Wyatt asked if you have the brain for it, if you could give us some of your sacred gardening links so that we can share them, and we may have time during the show. It's getting late. I know Mare's very very tired.
Buy the Great Mother Bible. Buy the Great Mother Bible, please. There's so much in there. There's a whole section on the nature spirits, and I have a webinar that I'm about to put up online that you can download all 4 sessions, where I talk about a whole teaching session about sacred gardening tips and working with the nature spirits. So I don't have on a website right now things to download on that level. I just don't. But I have books out. Go get my books. And go join the Sacred Gardening page on Facebook, because I'd love to see more active dialogues there. Please, if you are already a sacred gardener, we want to learn from you and have others learn. There's so much. It's the realms of this topic are just huge.
Wonderful. So I have a personal question now, because when I was on the ranch up in Colorado, in western Colorado, I had a 40-acre ranch with a friend of mine. It's still there. We don't live there anymore because the winters were too harsh and health conditions changed. But what we were doing, we were reseeding it with native grass seeds in the barren spaces. And we both had Bigfoot contact there, and we had alien ship contact. But we also, when I first looked at the ranch, when my friend took me to look at it, I saw this little guy he was kind of like a gnome. He was kind of like a brownie. He didn't have the pointy hat. He had a kind of, the more of the golfer's cap, or the sort of brownie cap that's kind of squidgy and felty. And I went down to, we had these 9 ponds, and the first day I went to look at it, we went to the main pond that had 2 springs feeding it. And I looked behind me, and there was this guy, this sort of brownie guy, looking at me and saying, "What do you intend to do here?" And I said, "Well, I intend to be quiet and write a book and work." And he said, "Are you going to cut down the trees?" And I said, "Well, no. Why would I do that?" And he goes, "You going to hurt any plants?" "No. Why would I do that?" He goes, "You going to change anything around greatly?" "No. Why would I do that?" And he goes, "All right, you can stay. I like you." So,
love it.
But what we did do is we took our horse poo, and we had shavings and horse poo that we composted, and we put it out, and we put the native seeds from the area in it, and we reseeded it because it had gotten a little beaten up by sheep grazing, which was temporary, 1 week in the spring, 1 week in the fall, but they had gone a little bit over and overgrazed it. And by the 3rd year that we were doing this, I started getting crystals and mushrooms left on tree stumps. And I couldn't tell if it was Bigfoot or if it was fairies, or if it was just big old pack rats who liked sparkly things, leaving them on top of stumps. So my question for Mother Gaia is, was it Bigfoot? Was it fairies? What was it? Because it was more than once.
Okay, let me ask. It was definitely the fairies. Yeah, they really loved what you did. They were gifting you back.
Okay, wonderful.
I don't know if Bigfoot would give a crystal back, honestly.
They like crystals. They like to keep them. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you know what? My sense is that the fairies, the nature spirit realms, the smaller ones, they like them a lot more than Bigfoot. It depends on the crystal, honestly. That's what I'm hearing right now. Okay. Depends on the crystal and the power of the crystal and what it's charged with. They all love a really powerful crystal, don't get me wrong. But go ahead.
I didn't know. I got a kind of purpley one that was almost like a clear quartz, but it had a very light purpley color to it. Not amethyst color. It was more of a magenta. I didn't know what it was. I was just like, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. You still have all those crystals?
At the ranch. They're up at the ranch in my bedroom. There, which I haven't slept in for almost 2 years, but
they want you to go retrieve them and use them.
Okay.
They don't want them collecting dust. They gave them to you for a reason. They'd probably help you with your health. I'm hearing this will help you with your health.
Well, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, they want to help you because they know what's happening with you, and the fact that crystals are just sitting there, they're like, well, we gave them to her. Why isn't she using them? This is what I'm hearing right now.
Do they have any ideas about, we've had to leave the ranch for multiple reasons, kind of a health and a little bit of a falling out. It's hard to have cabin fever for 7 years with one person. And we still talk and everything, but it's hard to do that. What would they like to happen with the ranch?
Well, letting land go back to wildness is really the most wisest, compassionate thing to do for the healing of Mother Gaia and the planet. And I don't know if that's an option for you, because then what's the real estate value of something that's gone back to wildness? But you were already planting all the wildflowers, it sounds like, the revegetation to more native species, which is a beautiful step forward, which is part of the reason that you receive those gifts. And plus you receive those gifts of crystals and stuff because they recognize your gifts and your intentions to be in harmony, and they were like, well, we really want to gift back to you. But if you really are talking about land and what to do with it for the highest good, for divine plan alignment, for the healing of the planet, then let it go back to wildness.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know when and if it will sell. Part of me is like, well, should I try to rent it from my friend and go back when my health is better? Or but we have to the great extent let it go back to wild because we stopped the sheep from being on it, and we did reseed it. I bet you there's huge tall grass there now, and I haven't seen it in a year, but so. All right.
I'm hearing, if it's okay for me to share this, that it'd be really healing for you to go spend some time there.
Okay. Yeah, I do need to go, and I could get my crystals and things. So.
And you could also, wink, wink, nod, nod, set up a little medicine wheel on the land. And if you want, above and beyond the show, I could guide you in that because I do long-distance consults with people and various things along those lines. But that would really help the energy there in a balanced, beautiful way. And I can tell you right now, I'm seeing some nature spirits jumping up and down with joy at the very thought of this happening.
Well, we will talk then because I have a lot of crystals that I sell in my gallery here in Madrid, so I can take things and use things that are around. Okay, enough about me. I'm boring everybody. We're going to go to Corey first, and then back to you. Corey asks, I have a fairy area in the corner of my patio. So should I assume the fairies are really there? I talk to them sometimes and leave them offerings sometimes, but have never really felt them or seen them.
Well, as I tune in right now, I'm not getting they're there on the patio. That's not usually where they would be hanging out. If you really want to engage with the fairies, have a wild corner on your property if you have enough land for that. Allow yourself to not have to cultivate every single corner of your yard or your land. And if you allow for a wild corner that you don't even really go in, other than maybe leave a little tobacco at the edge of it and offer them gifts of sacred little, well, I mean, sacred's a generic term or a general term, but, any shiny little baubles or stuff, they will gladly accept those. And crystals, custom jewelry. But patio is a bit close to your home and all your activities for fairies to want to hang out. That's just not their thing. I don't know. There's something going on your land that I'm tuning into, and I don't know how much land this person has, but the energies don't feel very conducive to fairies to me in the moment.
Is it the hot tub? It better not be the hot tub. She has a hot tub.
No, that wouldn't be their place either. Okay. I don't know. Does this person have any property beyond the patio?
Yeah, we'll wait for her to write back with us. And Wyatt's comment was he just wanted to say thank you for the words. He hasn't met or seen other beings in his garden yet, but he's learning more and more, and he's finding that his garden is becoming more and more productive and peaceful. And he's feeling more connected in it as he learns more and more about the spirits of the garden. So he says
they love him. I mean, I'm getting all this energy. The fairies are coming in on the energetic plane right now. They love you, Wyatt. Whatever you're doing, keep on doing it with your heart. Stay in your heart. Offer tobacco. They actually do ceremony with tobacco that we offer them. So leave little piles, and you'll really make them happy. But any shiny objects, I'm telling you, they love those things. But they really do. I'm feeling on the energy. They just came in and they're like, whatever you're doing, Wyatt, just keep on going. Go deeper.
Okay, so thanks Wyatt. Thanks, Corey. And I'm going to go back to... we had a question from Dave when we were in the break. And was he asking you about Dogman, what Mother Gaia thought about like a werewolf or a Dogman?
Oh, right. Yeah, that was interesting. I don't like the energies. Mother Gaia doesn't like whatever this Dogman is.
Okay.
It feels to me like Dogman is some genetic experiment on the part of some aliens that's been dropped onto Earth. And whoever did it is not really very of the highest good, shall we just say.
We have heard this before. We've heard this on the shift. We've heard this in other places that Dogman is an experiment who got left here. In fact, Joanna, our medium, on Two Mediums and a Large was saying the same thing. It's an experiment. He's got left here. He got dropped off and left here.
They need to go. Whoever they are, whoever did it, they need to come get them and yank them off the planet, because Mother Gaia doesn't want them here at all. I can tell you that. She's not liking this energy. The energy I'm feeling is like, and they're up to mischief. The mischief she doesn't like.
That's not good stuff. I have had a run-in with what I perceive to be a skinwalker, which is a shapeshifter, and this was a few years back in Mancos, Colorado. And we didn't see it physically, but it came as a spirit, and I could see it very clearly. It was chasing the car. There was a Jeep I was traveling in. I was a passenger, and a friend who was a medium was a driver. And this thing ran up alongside the car, and we both turned our head, and she said, "What's that?" And I looked with my third eye, and I said, "It looks like a man, but it looks like a werewolf. It's got, and it looks like it's trying to get in here." And it hopped on top of the Jeep and was like, proceeding to try to cut through the roof. And I'm saying the Lord's Prayer and a million gazillion other things. And it finally drops off from the energy. And then she is so scared, she's going 80 miles an hour. She passes a car in front of us. And at that moment, a deer walks out into the middle of the road. And we barely miss it. And I'm thinking it turned into a deer in order to kill us. My question is, are skinwalkers real? And what does Mother Gaia think about them?
Well, first of all, that deer was not the skinwalker.
Okay, good. Because it scared the crap out of us.
Yeah, no, the deer just happened to be there. Wait, let me ask. Is it deer? Wait, hold on. Is it deer or the skinwalker? Oh, wait, I'm wrong. I'm getting that the deer was a skinwalker. Well, there are just so many things that go on here on Earth that are, it's worse than mischief. It's just dark energies that have been running amok for too long. And, really gifted light workers are clearing them out. As best as they can, and trying to cut off ties between whatever is off planet that's manifesting these things here on Earth, and then what's left here on Earth to just clean it up and clear it up. And skinwalkers definitely exist. I don't know a lot about them. I've never had a personal experience with one, and I hope to never have a personal experience with one. I mean, with the kind of spiritual protection I've learned to have, I don't think they'll even get close to me. And I feel really humbled, in saying that. But this work I do for Mother has required me learning and developing some pretty serious spiritual protection and some good close guides. And, it's like the sad thing is if we think about indigenous cultures, for instance, where you have the shamans or the medicine people, there are some that are dark and they learn the dark arts. And I used to think that it was all about balance between the darker energies and the lighter energies. And I'm starting to come to this place of believing that with the ascension that's going on right now, the new world coming in, it's really about the dark shifting out. And it's not about balance as we move into the future between the dark and the light. It's really about the light. And the love and light. I should be more specific than just say light, because even dark beings can hold some light, which is a bit confusing as I've understood it. And please know that what I'm speaking is my cosmology. Nobody else has to completely agree with my cosmology. This is where I have arrived at with my lens on the universe at large. And there's so much I don't know. There's a lot I don't know. But, yes, skinwalkers exist. Yes, there are people that do spells on other people for nefarious reasons. Yes, there are curses. If anyone's grappling with anything like this, contact me. I can help you with some of the people I work with. They're not fun. And there are too many people who study the dark arts for power and control because that's where their soul has guided them. And they're usually under the influence of some heavier energies, and it's just not pretty, and it's time for this to come to an end. Mother's like, enough already. Yeah.
We don't need any more mini Hitlers or, mini necromancers or whatever it is, or big ones. So Corey is telling you, she wants you to go back and look at her property. She says, I have a thin garden around my patio, about 40 by 30 feet of backyard, and then there is a green belt behind her property. So, what do you
I wonder if they spray that green belt a lot. It's feeling sterile to me. The energy just feels sterile. If she really wants to develop a relationship with the fairy spirits, I suggest that I don't know what kind of bushes she has there or anything along those lines, but create some corners there that can be a little bit on the wild side or a lot on the wild side, or some big bushes the fairies can hang out underneath with or underneath. It feels energetically sterile to me.
It's cattle land, so it may be overgrazed and just being used as just one thing, a monoculture for cattle, perhaps.
You mean her yard and the green belt?
The green belt is cattle land.
Oh,
so yeah.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of diversity in most cattle land that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, it's like, where's the wildness?
Yeah, it's being made for monoculture human production.
Oh.
Not used. Oh, it's not used anymore. So she says it's not used anymore for that, but that's what it was.
Well, if it's healing, that's great.
Okay.
There's something still funny going on there. I can't really tune into the levels that I'd like to right now. I just can't do it. I don't know. Something maybe with the ley lines or something. Okay. If I were her, this is what I'd recommend to you, Corey, is, I don't know if you do any smudging, but get a bunch of sage and some beautiful sacred herbs like lavender and just start praying and burning that in your backyard. And at least that will shift the energy right around the back of your house there. And if you want to contact me separately, I could probably help you with some other land clearing stuff. There's something going on there that I can't put a finger on, but I'm not supposed to right now.
Okay. That may be it. All right. I personally have one more question. And it has to do with, I am an abductee, and I've been taken by what people consider the Zetans, or they're sort of a multi-group. There's some Zetans, and they're different colors, and there's some mantids, and there's some tall white dudes. And when I was taken, I was always asked, do you want to help everybody on this planet? Do you want to help this planet? And my question is, what does Mother Gaia say about the intentions of the particular group that I was taken by in terms of helping people on this planet and helping this planet?
Huh. How many times were you taken?
A whole crap ton. For a long time, until I was 32. And I also still work with some that I'm not taken, I'm not abducted anymore.
Honestly, I cannot give you an answer. She's not giving me an answer.
Okay.
That's the best I can tell you. She's just being silent. Yeah.
It's interesting because as a child, I was really sort of drawn to being out in the wilderness and out with animals. I would go out after school and look in ponds and play in the woods and hang out with the critters. And my dad was a biologist. My brother turned into a wildlife biologist. But there was something more to it, and I felt like the aliens had something to do with it. But maybe they didn't. Maybe it was just the nature spirits, and I'm wondering if she could tease that out.
When you were young?
Mm-hmm. I'm still that way, but I mean, I really was mini naturalist girl. And just hanging out with the critters was my thing.
Yeah, you were feeling the energies in the land and the nature spirits. They really loved your energy. They still do.
Yeah. So that's more of the nature spirits than the aliens, because sometimes I would get picked up when I was outside and go off to other places.
When you were really young, also?
Mm-hmm.
You've had an interesting life.
Yeah. Oh, it happens. Life happens.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're coming up on the end. Dawn, I missed a question from Dawn. I'm going to go back through. Dawn, can you retype it? Because I'm scrolling through. I didn't mean that Dawn in the Spreaker chat room wanted to ask a question, and I missed it, so I'm going to let her retype it. And or not. Hold on, everybody. Well, you're getting called out, Miss Mare. You're getting called out. Some of the guys think that you don't like the divine masculine as much as you think you do. So you can take that for what it's worth.
Well, let me respond to them.
Okay.
If you guys want to project that onto me, I invite you to turn that inward. Because I have a great love for the divine masculine as much as I am trying to learn about it to the best of my capacity. So if you want to judge me on that level, know that Mother loves you tremendously, but you're projecting some stuff there for you to look at.
Okay. No, I'm not blue. You are. Okay. And then Dennis asked if Mother Earth knows about people who turn into bears, like shapeshifters who are bear walkers.
You know, she's aware of everything.
Okay.
Oh, yes. She's very aware of that. And those who are gifted enough to do that to serve the highest good for divine plan alignment, she really celebrates that. Those who do it for more nefarious reasons, she's not so supportive of.
Okay. Excellent. We're coming down to the end of the show. Mare Cromwell, thank you so much for staying up so late and giving us messages from Mother Gaia and explaining the situation between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Can you tell us again how people can reach you and where to find your books?
Happy to. So, yes, you can go to marecromwell.com, MareCromwell.com, on Facebook at Mare Cromwell, a couple other pages, Mare Cromwell's books, and the Great Mother books pages. I think that's enough.
Okay.
Go to Earth Mother message, whatever, but don't find me. If you want to find me on Instagram, I don't post much.
Okay. And what are some of the events that you'll be doing?
Oh, thank you for asking. I'm starting up something new called Gaia Lightworker Training. Doing a one-day workshop here in the Mid-Atlantic in Pennsylvania, and then I'm going to do one in Holland. I'm doing some divine masculine workshops, one in Holland, one in Belgium, maybe one in Holland that's yet to be set. Sacred gardening workshop in Holland. Gaia Heart Connection. If you go on my website, they're all there. I am going to be putting up a webinar to download the whole thing in one fell swoop on opening to Gaia's sacredness, which is really all about how to be in far more sacred relationship with Earth Mother and what that means. And, you know, working with the nature spirit, sacred gardening, a little bit about Sasquatch. It's kind of a broad smattering of a whole different cosmology of understanding this amazing planet that we live on how sacred we are as a part of it.
Mare, thank you so much for being with us tonight and talking about all of the wonderful things that you're doing. I would love to have you back in a few months or, after Washington. I want to see what happens there this time. For everybody listening, thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much, Mare. But we're going to close it on out now. We're getting to the end. Just to let you know, Dave Scott's guest for tomorrow night is Butch Witkowski and Lon Strickler talking about the Chicago Mothman sightings. And there will be more on Butch's monthly feature, Strange Days, at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. And if you haven't checked out spacedoutradio.com, you're listening on one of the terrestrial radio stations, please go and check us out soon. We will be back next week with Cosmic Passport with Psychic Sunday. It will be Paisley Town and myself and a special guest. I will not be doing readings. The big authoritarian god in the sky, Dave Scott. Oh, wait, no, he's not that way. Has said I can't do readings and host the show at the same time, but we are going to have a very special medium on next Sunday for you. So please join us for Cosmic Passport, Psychic Sundays next week. And the week after that, I've been told that somebody wants to talk about the Akashic, and they want to talk about, oh gosh, something else. I can't remember what it is. It is, 3 a.m. in the morning, Mare's time, and my brain has gone on hiatus. Thank you so much for listening again to Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home. We are out of here. We'll see you next week. Love you all. Hugs and kisses. See you later.